Salton Sea in Southern California, 60 miles southeast of Palm Springs in the Imperial Valley. I'm Jack Whitaker, the third annual Salton City 500-mile boat race. The race will consist of two divisions, inboard and outboard, with no cubic inch displacement limitations. And it will take 2 days to complete. 80 boats from all over North America will start this event for the largest purse in motorboat racing, over $22,000. 40 in the outboard, 40 in the inboard. And now let's go down to the judges' stand, to Fred Hamilton.
Welcome to the Salton City 500. This is Fred Hamilton speaking to you from the Salton Sea, 175 miles southeast of Los Angeles. On these shores today, 80 boats will compete for the largest prize in motorboat racing. Now with me will be the Director of Racing of Indianapolis Speedway and the Chairman of Racing here at the Salton City 500. Nobody's better qualified to bring you the color and excitement of this race than the man I'm about to introduce you to, Mr. Sam Hanks. Sam?
Hello, Fred.
Good to see you.
Beautiful day for the race, isn't it?
Great. The water's calmed down a little bit. We've lost our whitecaps.
Yes, and I know one thing for sure, that the boys are certainly going to like that, because when those whitecaps are up here at the sea, it's a pretty rough ride for them, and they don't like that.
Sam, how long is the course?
Well, the course is 4 miles, Fred. It will take 125 laps to complete the 500 miles.
Sam, having won the Indianapolis 500 yourself, and having been exposed to 2 days of qualifying here, which of these two races, they're both 500 miles, seems to be the ruggedest race?
Well, I think the major difference between the two races, Fred, is the fact that this is going to be a real rough course for the boys to drive. The ways out there, it makes it a real rough ride for them, and it will be very fatiguing. It will also be rough on the boats. At the speedway there, our ride is much smoother, but I think the high speed that we're running is a little more mental fatigue there than it is physical.
Sam, this race takes 2 days. Why?
Well, Fred, it's a boat race, and they can't run as fast as we do at the speedway, so consequently it's going to take a lot longer. Now, today's race will start at 10:30 and end at 3:30. This gives them 5 hours, and I would imagine that the leaders at the end of this day's event will probably have covered about 275 to 300 miles. Now, tomorrow, Sunday, they'll be allowed 6 hours to complete the full 500 miles.
I heard that they don't eat breakfast before they start this race.
Well, I can certainly see why. The way they can jostle around that seat, I don't think this would be a very good thing to do at all.
Well, they're all using relief drivers, aren't they? Not one man goes the full 5 hours, does he?
No, one man couldn't run this race. He probably could, but it would be to his disadvantage because it'd probably slow him down and be tired. But I think they'll use anywhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 drivers for the 500 miles.
Sam, the only way I can identify any of these boats out here is by number. Now, which numbers do you feel have the best chance?
Well, that's always a hard question to answer, but just from practice and the way the boys have been running, I think the Allisons naturally have the best chance because they're a much faster boat. And that would be U80 with Bob Patterson, U52 with Richie Hallett, and U35 with Jack Salton.
Yeah.
We also have the U69 driven by Wells Wilson, who looks pretty good. So I would think that any one of these few boats here could be in pretty good contention at the end of this race Sunday.
I'll watch those numbers, Sam. And now to Jack Whitaker and Sam Hanks to bring you the start of the race.
Thank you, Fred. They're circling down there. They have their minute gun. They'll have a minute to get up to the starting line. They can't cross before it's up. The idea is to hit it just as the minute's up at full speed. And there'll be a flare gun to signify the start. Sam Hanks, nice to have you here.
Thank you, Jack. Nice to be here.
We're going to get a good start?
It looks like a real good start. There goes the flare, and the race is on. That flare almost struck that boat. If it had, it might have created quite a fire.
Now, these are the outboards, right?
This is the outboard division. They got off to a fine start, and it looks like Jack Oxley and T170 is out in the lead. It's always nice to be out in the front, Jack, in an event like this because you got a little smoother sailing, and the competition is behind you, and it's a nice place to be.
I'll hit for the first turn, which is about 2 miles down the course.
It's about a mile from where we're sitting, Jack.
And in a few seconds, the inboards will have their start.
They certainly will. They're probably back there rendezvousing now. And the reason they start the inboards 1 minute behind the outboards, Jack, is actually so that the outboards can get strung out a little bit and the race isn't quite as dangerous when the faster boats start passing. They negotiated that turn very good.
Here we're back at the starting line, and here come the inboards. Up to the start, and look at them come.
There they go. 150, driven by Skip Bolt.
Now, this is 500 miles over 2 days, Sam. Is there any particular battle plan or strategy these drivers will have?
I don't believe there will be right here at the start of this race, Jack, and on the first day. I think they're going to be trying to get out away from one another in smoother riding to save their equipment and themselves.
Mm-hmm. What is the most likely place for a boat to break down in a race like this?
Well, actually, almost anywhere, Jack. These boats are subject to a terrific beating by the rough sea, and the pilots are also. But actually, the vibration that these boats will have to withstand for a race of this duration is really puts them through a lot of punishment. Tries to really shake them apart.
Sam, what kind of speeds will they be making on the straightaways?
I imagine these boats will be running in the neighborhood of about 80 miles an hour. They're very fast boats, the inboards, and the outboards will probably be running in the neighborhood of about 65 to 75 miles an hour.
And how many times will they have to refuel?
I would think that they would refuel 2 times on each day. Today they'll have 2 stops, and Sunday they'll probably have to make another 2 stops.
They have a pit stop just like in automobile racing?
Yes, they do. They have a refueling stop.
They get a flag to come in, or?
No, they usually know how many number of laps they can run, or they watch their crew, and their crew can identify them or call them in. Jack Oxley's out there with a nice lead, and he looks like he's running real smooth, Jack. It's a real fine riding boat.
T-140.
T-140 is driven by Chuck Mercereau. He's doing a very fine job, and he's out there by himself, so he's got a nice ride.
And U-35 here in the inboard, Jack Salmon. And what is this?
Well, this looks like the first boat out of the race, driven by Bill Cooper, U-17. Perhaps we can get Fred to get him up here and give us a reason why he's out of the race. Got him a rough ride. It's getting a lot more choppier out there since the boat's been going by. So they're beginning to take their pounding real early in the race.
Oh, look at him bounce.
It's not like driving down the freeway, believe me.
Sure, it's not like driving in Indianapolis even, is it?
No, it's not. It's a little rougher. U-35, Jack Salmon going by again. And here's another rough riding boat. There's a fellow that's had a little trouble. He kind of flipped down there in the turn.
And this is Jack Oxley again in T-170. And at this point, we've reached about 30 laps. We have Jim Pfluger in U-6 and T-170, Jack Oxley leading at this point. Fred Hamilton, who has Bill Cooper, and we'll have that interview for you in just a moment. Back at the Salton City 500, and now let's go up to Fred Hamilton and Bill Cooper.
Ladies and gentlemen, some people have all the good luck and some people have all the bad. My friend Bill Cooper here seems to have had all the bad. Welcome to the judges' stand, Bill.
Well, thank you, Fred. I'd much rather be in my boat out there.
What happened out there? I saw number 17 being towed by beautifully.
Well, as they say, you can't win them all, but it'd sure be nice to be able to start a couple.
What happened?
Well, we broke our drive shaft, the torque tube running from the engine to the V-drive. We struck a rock yesterday in practice and tore up our shaft and prop and rudder and strut. And in replacing it, evidently the shock cracked the shaft, and the first qualifying lap, we're running around 80 miles an hour, and came loose, came apart.
No, that's a shame. That's a shame. Tell me, your good friend Jim Pfluger, who flew over here from Honolulu, had an exciting experience. Would you tell the audience what happened to him?
Yes, that was interesting, Fred. He, Jimmy flew over 2,000 miles from Honolulu to make this race. Rented a car in Los Angeles, headed for Salton Sea. Never been here before, wasn't sure where the marina was. Overshot the marina. Ended up, I don't know, El Centro, bottom of the sea, and came back, and in so doing missed the driver's meeting, which, of course, meant automatic disqualification. Well, Jimmy isn't one to be daunted by rules or regulations. He got by the guards, jumped the fence, jumped into the lagoon, swam between the boats, over to the judge's stand, ran up and did a selling job on him, got back in the race.
Well, then he had to swim back, didn't he?
That's right. He's a good swimmer.
He's a good driver, too. He's in first place at the moment.
You bet your life he is. Jimmy's done a lot of driving, and he's doing a beautiful job out there.
Well, Bill, I'm sure sorry you're out. Number 17 was something I was looking forward to seeing up in front.
Well, I was too, Fred.
Well, we'll see you later.
Thank you
Bill.
so much.
Thank you, Fred. There is U6, Jim Pfluger, and he is leading in the inboard section now with T170, Jack Oxley in the outboards. We hit the 31st lap, and here coming in for a pit stop is T101. Sam, what's the difference between a pit stop here and at Indianapolis?
Well, there's quite a difference here between the pit stops at Indianapolis and here at the Salton City 500. The pit stops at Indianapolis only require about 20 seconds for the boys to come in and pick up 4 wheels and tires and about 50 gallons of fuel. Now here the pit stops at Salton City will require in the neighborhood of from 3 to 5 minutes to refuel these boats because it's a pretty tough job to do, as you can see. I think the can that they're installing in the boat is what is known as a safety measure to, in the event that they run out of gas anywhere on the course, they can get back to the pits. This boat here is kind of a strange configuration. It's powered by outboard engines, but they're mounted inboard.
But like at Indianapolis, seconds are important in a pit stop.
They really are. The seconds can either make a winner out of you or you can become a loser. So the team effort there in the pits is a real important factor in winning any event. Here goes Richie Hallett by in that U-52. Incidentally, I think we should mention here that the U identifying the boats means that it's an inboard powered craft. The T means that it's an outboard engine powered craft.
And all things being equal, the inboard should go faster than the outboard.
I would say that they would have about in the neighborhood of 10 miles an hour speed on them, Jack.
There's no limit to horsepower in this race, though.
No limit to horsepower. Incidentally, talking about horsepower, I think the Allison engines are in the neighborhood of about 1,200 horsepower. Now, we don't allow them to use the supercharger on the Allison engine for safety reasons here in this race. And the outboard powered boats, now like this twin that is taking off, each of those engines put out in the neighborhood of 75 horsepower.
Well, this fellow's got a total of about a half a horsepower, and he's having a great pit stop. How about safety factors, Sam? I see the boys all wear life preservers.
Yes, that's mandatory, and they also have to wear crash helmets, and they have a fire extinguisher in their boat, too, in the event that they do have a fuel line failure and a little fire in the boat out where nobody can get to them.
How deep is the water here?
The water here, I believe, where they're running on the course is in the neighborhood of from 8 to 10 feet.
But they don't stop the race when there's a...
No, the race goes on regardless of what the collision course or the accident situation might be.
So if you overturned out there, have a power failure or something, you're on your own crossing the street.
You are for a certain length of time, and we have what is known as safety patrol boats all through the area. In the event a driver gets upside down, a patrol boat will get to him as quick as it possibly can. Now you can see here, Jack, that the sea is getting quite rough, and the boys are getting a very, very rough ride. And as we mentioned back about the equipment, you can imagine the pounding that the boat and the driver is making right here. And Wells Wilson is doing real fine here. He's in real good shape, and his boat seems to be running real fine. It sounds real good as it goes by. Now, the Allison going by there now isn't running too smooth. It's what we call kind of sputtering pretty bad. In other words, he might be having a little carburation trouble.
Well, here's somebody that's having a little more than carburation trouble. What's happening here?
Well, it looks like he's dead in the water, Jack, and I notice he's crawling up on the bow of the boat. Now, here comes the patrol boat, and they will ask him if he wants a tow, and if he refuses the tow, that means he's going to paddle the boat on back into his pit. Now, if he does this, he can repair whatever is wrong with the boat and get back in whatever hours are left for the day. And if he accepts a tow, then he is disqualified for the remainder of the day.
Well, it looks like he wants to go in his own power.
Yeah, he's going to try and make her back by his own. His arms will be a little tired. He's going to lose a lot of time here, but he still has about 2 or 3 hours yet of the race to run, so he's in pretty good shape.
It's sure like crossing the street against the light, too, isn't it? With a
Really
paddle
is.
when these boys are going by.
Now, here, Jack, is one of the girls that is calling off the numbers of the boats as they go by so the score can record it.
Sam, how come that so many start and so few finish in a race at this time?
Well, again, as I mentioned before, the casualty list on the equipment here will be quite high due to the roughness of the sea and the high performance of the engines. And last year, I believe we only had about 20 boats finish the entire 500 miles. And from all indications, we have about 40% more boats running at this time than we did last year. So it looks like we're going to have a lot of more boats complete the full 500 miles. Here is the finish, Jack, of the first day running of the Salton City 500-mile race.
That means that they have to complete the lap they're on now?
Yes. They're happy this day's over too, Jack.
Well, it's been a grueling day, and probably the most grueling of the two, since they're trying to do more than one half the distance in this first day. But you can bet that these competitors are all very tired and very happy that they can get out of the bouncing boat for a few hours and leave the sea. Well, that's the end of the first day's running here of the Salton City 500 mile. 74 laps done by two boats in the inboard class, 68 laps by the outboard.
Well, Sam, here we are at the end of the first day. I've seen a lot of mistakes made and a lot of lucky things and bad things happen. How do they stand out there now? I watched those numbers, incidentally, that you told me about prior to the show. They're doing pretty well.
Well, I can't complain.
Well, the outboard division, at the end of the first day, we have T140, driven by Chuck Mercero from Norwalk, California, in first place. In second place, we have T102, driven by Bob Ogle of Fullerton, California. In third place, we have T170, driven by Jack Oxley of Long Beach, California. Now, in the inboard division, the first three finishers here are U6. It's driven by Doug Fowler, known by Rudy Remus of Glendora, California. And in second place is U69, Wells Wilson. And in third place is U52, one of the Allisons that I thought might do a little better earlier on. And that's driven by my friend Richie Hallett from Downey, California. So that's the way they stand at the end of the first day of running.
We'll be back with the second day of running in the Salton City 500 after the following message. Well, Sunday morning has dawned bright and clear as we get ready for the second day of competition in the Salton Sea 500-mile boat race. Down in the pit area, the activity is feverish. Here you can see some of the attrition caused by the first day's competition, such as this. Fred Hamilton is down there somewhere. Let's go down to the pit area now, and Fred.
U69. This is the boat that would have been ahead. I'll explain in a moment. They missed a buoy. He's not ahead far enough. I'd like to introduce Harry Salino and Mr. Wells Wilson. They'll explain the problem. How are you? Fred, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Fellas, what happened with that lap yesterday?
You're talking about the buoy that I missed, probably.
The buoy that you admit it.
Yeah, sure do.
You started, didn't you, Wells?
Right,
You went the first half and you went the second half.
Yes, sir.
Sorry to hear about that buoy.
I was sorry, and you are.
You've covered about 290 miles, is that right?
Got pretty
Somewhere in the
close.
neighborhood? You got 210 to go.
About another 3 hours. Figure about 3 hours more to go today.
3 hours.
Right.
So at 1:30, we'll expect to see you in the winner's circle. Is that correct?
We hope so.
You got a beautiful boat. I'm very curious about that seat. I've seen a lot of seats, but that looks like the one I'd like to sit in most myself.
Well, that was made by a friend of ours, especially for this race.
I see. Are there any other unique features of the boat outside of the fact it's a beautiful boat?
Well, other than the fact that we managed to put it together in about 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Made especially for marathon racing. We both have ski boats that we use for closed course racing and what have you otherwise, but this one is set up strictly for marathon racing. And we hope to have a lot of luck with all the races around.
Well, this is its maiden voyage then.
Yeah, we had
right.
just 3 hours, 3 hours on the engine about before we...
Fellas, I want to wish you a lot of luck with it. And let's miss no buoys today.
Thank you very much.
Right, nice meeting you both. Good luck.
Thank you.
Now the boats are all leaving the pit areas, getting out onto the course, and we're just about ready to have the start of the second day's competition of the 500-mile boat race. As of this point, in the inboards, U6 and U69 have completed 74 laps and are tied for the lead. And in the outboard, T140, Chuck Mercereau, has completed 68 laps to lead in that division. Again, we'll have the same start as we had yesterday. Is that right, Sam?
That's right, Jack. It'll be a 1-minute clock start. Boats are milling around now. The countdown is going. The very pistol has been fired and the race is on.
Now, will there be any difference in strategy now that we're in the last day?
Yes, there will be. The boys will be perhaps trying to save their engines and not running them what we would call flat out. They'll be babying them as much as they can so that they will continue and finish this event.
A good start here for the outboard motorboats, and back down the course, the inboards will be getting ready for their start as the outboards now hit the first turn and leaving their wakes behind them. Again, looking very beautiful from our aerial photography, but causing a lot of bumps down there on the water, Sam, right?
Yes. I think it was a very good start. They got through the first turn here in real good shape. Now here come our inboards. They're watching the 1-minute clock and they're just about ready to run. And here they are hitting the line for the start of their second day.
And it's another good start. And there's U69. That's Wells Wilson, whom you just met with Fred Hamilton. He was the co-leader.
Mickey Thompson driving U34.
Here with U52, Richard Hallett of Downey, California in the Allison, and he's got a little distance to make up, doesn't he?
Yes, he has. He had a little trouble the first day. He's 2 laps behind, Jack, and you can rest assured that Rich will be having his foot in the throttle pretty deep to try to pick up those 2 laps and get back in the lead of this event.
Here you'll get some indication of the speed of these boats as our airplane tracks them down on the stretch. They're really moving.
T170 is sailing along real good. Jack is doing a very fine job. He's been driving a very steady and very smooth race, and his engines on his boat have been running very good. It sounds clean as a hound's tooth as he goes by here every lap. You can see the boys wiping their face plates there because the Salton Sea has quite a bit of salt in it. And when it gets on their visors like this, it becomes pretty hard to see. So you'll be noticing them here throughout the event, Jack, that they do wipe their visors, their goggles quite frequently.
Yes, I think it would help to be able to see where you're going.
Now today, the boys will really be praying and hoping that all the parts in the engine and the boat stays together, because as you near the end of the race, you just kind of pray that all the pieces stay put. I can remember the year I won the race in Indianapolis in 1957. The last few laps, all I could do, I was talking to the engine and to the entire car, telling it to please be good and stay together.
Here are our drivers now waving at our photographer in the plane.
U36 and U35. U35 has made up quite a few laps. Saturday he had that spin out and swamped the boat, was about 8 laps behind. But he's picked up a few of the laps. He seems to be running real good. If he continues to run like this, I think he'll be in about the first 3 or perhaps the first 4. You can see that the water's getting real choppy here, Jack. You can notice the fins on that boat as it was flying by. This little job here seems to be running quite smooth, too.
Yes. Here they make the turn, and again, the wakes streaming out behind them. Here comes U6.
Chuck's been doing a fine job in this boat here.
And on the top of their helmet there, you'll notice a little bump, which is radio communication back to the pits. Now look at these 2 boys, U6 and U69, with 74 laps apiece in the first day, and they're staying right close to each other here this afternoon.
They are.
That's U69 with Wells Wilson of Hollywood, California, and U6, Doug Fowler of Gardena, California. And they haven't been out of each other's 10 yards from one another, it seems, the last few laps. But now Now, Sam Hanks has just left to join Fred Hamilton up on the judges' stand, where I think Fred has something of interest for us.
Well, we've seen a lot of beautiful boats. We've seen a lot of beautiful weather. And now let's see a beautiful girl. I'd like to have you meet Miss Janet Lee.
Well, thank you, Fred. That's very sweet.
Janet, how are you enjoying the race?
Oh, I think it's just fascinating. It's the first time I've ever been to a boat race, and I didn't know what to expect, and I'm certainly not disappointed. I'm really fascinated. I can hardly keep my eyes on you.
Well, that's quite a run out there between 6 and 69.
I know it. It's fascinating and very interesting to me as a newcomer to see how they're absolutely parallel, and after 85 laps that they've been able to stay neck and neck like that. I noticed that 6 seems to pull ahead in the curves, and 69 seems to get equal with him on the straightaway, and after all this time, there they are, just going along right together. Oh, there goes U-35. Look at him go.
Well, 35 is powered by an Allison, and it's been running real good.
Yeah.
He's about 8 laps behind, though. He had a little trouble the first day, and U-52, driven by Rich Hallett, is also in contention with his Allison, Janet. He's running in third place right now, but he's only 2 laps behind, so he has a fine chance of winning this event also.
Well, how much today did 35 pick up?
Well, the race has just been running about 10, 15 laps today, and he's probably picked up 1 of his 8. So he's still got a little ways to go.
It's really thrilling, isn't it?
It really is. Incidentally, those 2 boats running first and second, 6 and 69, they're kind of playing it a little cozy.
Oh, there goes 52. His motor sounds better, I think.
It sounds a lot better, Janet.
Well, as I was saying about 6 and 69, I agree. I think that they're really, kind of cooling it and hoping that they won't push their boat too fast today as long as they are ahead and not have motor trouble.
Well, we all hope they don't have motor trouble, but this is one of the things that we always have in racing.
One thing I'm really very grateful for is that I've heard a lot about boat racing and the terrible accidents that can happen, and so far it's been a safe race, and I'm really glad about that.
Well, we're real happy about that too, Janet. Actually, in a race of this nature and this duration here, you always have some accidents that are kind of rough, but so far this has been a real good, clean race, and we hope it stays that way.
Me too.
Janet, it's been very nice having you here on the judges' stand, and we certainly hope you enjoy the race.
Oh, thank you. I've had a ball. Bye.
Good.
Thank you, Sam. We're at 85 laps of the 125-lap race, and we'll be back with the thrilling climax in just a moment. Now the closing moments of the Salton City 500-mile boat race. From now on, the men will be separated from the boys. Sam?
They certainly will. Right here now is when the chips are down. How the boys handle their boat and take care of the equipment really means whether they're first, second, third, or out of the entire program. Looks like Jack is sitting along real good here. He's got pretty good command of first place in the outboard division. And I think he's running pretty well up in the overall program, too.
You can see now that the traffic is not nearly as heavy as it was at the beginning of the race on Saturday, as the boats string out behind here as they hit the turn.
We're down now to a field of about 50 boats out of the total of 80. Here's 170. Driven by Jack Oxley. He's sailing along real good. He has complete command of first place in the outboard division. Now, if this boat and the engine stay together and Jack does the fine job that he's been doing driving this machine, he should be in first place in the outboard division.
I'd like to make mention right here, as you saw that boat, the Coast Guard Reserve has done a fine job here.
They certainly have. They have been in complete charge of the patrol of all the disabled boats, and here again we see them hauling off another cripple. They've done a remarkable job, and they should be commended for doing this. Rich Hallett is still moving along now. Rich should be in real fine competition here. He should be nearing in the position of first place because he was 2 laps behind Saturday. He's been running real well and has made it up pretty well. Now, if that big Allison engine and all its horsepower can stay together, he could give Wells a pretty good tussle.
Here's the U-69 pit now, and maybe some trouble brewing for U-69 as Wells Wilson brings it in, being flagged in by his crew.
Well, I think what's happening here, Jack, is that their crew are signaling to him to come in, so perhaps this next lap around he will make a pit stop for fuel. It'll be quite interesting to see here. Now, this is a very crucial point for them in this race. There'll be a driver change along with the refueling of this boat. So we'll see who gets in it. Now, I believe that Wells is driving. Here he comes. It's a real nice approach to the pits. Didn't overshoot. Right in nice and smooth. And the boys start to work. This is a little different from the pit stops at Indianapolis. You can see the pit crew here is a little handicapped with all the water they got to wade through, and they got to hand pour all the fuel into the tanks. Where at the Speedway, we dump the fuel in under pressure. We can dump 50 gallons of fuel into the tank in about 12 seconds. It takes a total of 20 seconds to include a pit stop at the Speedway with 4 tires and fuel.
In the meantime, U6, Doug Fowler, has just passed them.
That's right, and if you'll notice there that Wells was motioning and telling Harry that he's now in the lead, so get out there and get that boy.
Now, they have a chance to talk over a little strategy here. Tell them how the boat's running, how it's behaving, things of that nature.
Perhaps he does, because they like to convey on to one of the other drivers and the relief driver as what is going on and how the boat's handling and where's the best spot to ride on the course.
Well, there goes U-69 back into the course.
Looks like Wells is kind of giving a few instructions here to the crew.
Well, the next few minutes are very critical here. Well, U6 and U-69 have been neck and neck most of this last day, Sam, but I haven't seen U6 in the last lap or two.
Jack, I haven't seen U-35 driven by Jack Solomon come by here either for the last few laps.
Well, let's put a tracer on him, Sam. It would be a shame if something happened to him. T-170, Jack Oxley, moving very nicely.
Fortunately, he has 2 engines. If he would lose one with the lead that he has, he may be able to hold on to first place.
Another mission of mercy here as one by one these boats are running into trouble as we get near the end of 500 miles of grueling driving over the Salton Sea.
U-14 has been doing a real marvelous job here and driving a very fine race and real good competition. He's in the first 3.
Sam, I noticed U-52, Rich Hallett, and that big Allison who made up such great ground here today has disappeared. Well, it's getting awfully close to the end.
Checkered flag for Wells Wilson. Driving a very fine race here at Salton City 500. A long, grueling race, and the checkered flag is his.
Well, that's the end of it. 500 miles over the Salton Sea, and U-69, driven by Wells Wilson, the winner in the inboards. And T-170, Jack Oxley, the winner in the outboards. Now let's go to Fred and Sam.
Well, Sam, here we are, 2 days later and 500 miles later, one of the most exciting races I've ever seen.
Really was.
Yeah.
Beautiful race.
I know 69 won, but who came in second and third?
Well, in the overall finishes of the first 3 positions, Fred, U-69 was the winner, driven by Wells Wilson, who's also the owner of the boat from Hollywood, California. Incidentally, he broke the record by 1 hour, which is a pretty good run.
Well, that's amazing.
In second place, U-8, driven by Hal Logan from Gardena, California. And the boat is owned by Rudy Ramus, also of Gardena, California. In third place, driving the outboard, T-170, was driven by owner Jack Oxley of Long Beach, California.
And here, the traditional ceremony that goes with the winner of a boat race as the U-69 crew comes out en masse to take the driver and give him a good dunking. A very happy group of winners, and of course, as always, a very sad group of losers. A grueling pace of 500 miles, the distance between San Diego and San Francisco in an open sea, is just about what these people did. Here's the check, and here is the big trophy, all of which goes to the winner.
It looks like the whole crew and the whole family is up here to receive the awards for this event, Jack.
It sure does. And Janet Lee here, being the ceremonial lady, giving congratulations. And that trophy's pretty heavy.
Well, I know I've enjoyed this weekend. I know you have, and I hope the audience has, and we'll see you next year at the Salton City 500.